What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another car review. This is of course the 2018 Alfa Romeo Stelvio Quadrifoglio. Huge thanks to Alfa Romeo for providing us with this very sweet Stelvio Quadrifoglio to review for you guys today. Also, huge thanks to the Automotive Video Association for arranging this vehicle and 9 other awesome cars and SUVs for the second annual Automotive Video Awards, which brings 7 of the best car reviewers in video and myself together to decide which is the best performance car and performance SUV of the year. So about the Quadrifoglio version, well, it is very cool. You know, it broke a Nürburgring lap record. It's a very impressive from a performance standpoint, and it also looks very good in typical Alfa fashion. I love the styling on these new Alfas so much. You know, right up front there, you have the very cool Alfa Romeo grille, which is a signature thing. They've stuck with it for years, and I absolutely love the shape of that grille. And you know, it just got a very three-dimensional look to it. I love the Alfa Romeo badge there on the top of it. Looks really good. You have these nice, attractive headlights like any other Stelvio. But the more aggressive front air dam, which I really enjoy here. And coming down to the sides, you got these very sweet 20-inch wheels. And I like how they have the holes in them here. It's just a really cool look, and just really helps that, you know, red brake caliper to pop, and everything looks very cool. You also will see on the fender here the 4-leaf clover badge, which is your only indication as far as badging goes. This is a Quadrifoglio version. On the back, it just has the normal Stelvio, and that's it. So a little bit more low profile. It's not as shouty with a million badges saying, oh, look, I'm special. This just, you know, has the aggressive looks, and that's it. And those who know. Another thing that kind of gives it away are these slightly wider fenders. I like the little parts that are flared out there, again, to help conceal these tires a little bit, which are much wider than a regular Stelvio. Going out back there, though, you have the same very attractive, you know, back end as any other Stelvio, but you do have the quad exhaust tips, which look very good here, and the more aggressive rear bumper there, especially in the lower part, looks very good there as well. And so overall, you know, I think especially in this white tri-coat, it just is really, it really pops. It just looks really cool. You also have, like, up front here, these vents in the hood that are really cool looking. And so overall, I think it's a really good looking little SUV. Rest of the interior of the Stelvio Quadrifoglio. It's a really exciting place to be. They really dress it up nicely with lots of color. I love all the red you have, but it's not overkill, you know? You have still have black dash, black steering wheel, black seats, and all that kind of stuff. But I love the red stitching you have here. Even the top of the dashboard is you know, stitched here and has leather on it. It's just really nice. But anyway, first things first, sitting down in these seats. Really very heavily bolstered seats you have here in the Quadrifoglio version, which are just, I mean, so sporty. They just feel really cool, and the second you sit in this, you know you're in something special. Thankfully, you do have adjustable bolstering here in the Stelvio, so you can make it just as tight or as loose as you want. You know, just really great torso and thigh support. It really hugs you in nicely, and the Alcantara here in the middle is nice and grippy, so that holds you in place as well. Next, there's the steering wheel here in the Stelvio, which is just marvelous. Same great shape as all the Stelvios and Giulias. They all have an excellent steering wheel here. And so, you know, it has a really great 9-3 grip. Nice little 10 and 2 notches. The whole rim of the wheel is a little bit thinner, which I actually appreciate. It's a little bit of a smaller wheel. It's not so huge and chunky and stuff. It's just very manageable, and I really love, you know, the simplicity of it too. You know, it's just a few buttons here on the front, and then the very cool engine stop start button, which is red here in the Quadrifoglio, and looks really cool, nicely stands out. This one is also has the carbon fiber here, which is optional, and the Alcantara, which is optional, and you know, you have some metal on it here. It just looks like a really high quality steering wheel in a lot of ways. You also have these massive paddle shifters that are thick, heavy metal behind the wheel here, mounted to the steering column, not the wheel, so they always stay in the same place, which I love, and they are just beautiful to look at, beautiful to touch, and great to use. And so I absolutely love this steering wheel. Next are the gauges here, which are very cool, very similar to any other Alfa, but, you know, has the little 4-leaf clover there by the speedometer, which goes up to 200, a little higher than all the others. Otherwise, though, just really great, clear, you know, exciting looking gauges. I really like that. In the middle there, you have a screen that has just a few basic things here. It's not like any other FCA thing. You know, there isn't really any part sharing with Alfa. They went completely on their own here. So you have just a very simple thing. It just goes through digital speedometer. It just has your, you know, trip info, and then a G meter, and that is it. There's like 4 things. So very simple, but it does, you know, still display you know, a few other things there on the home screen. And so overall, really, you know, simple, but just everything you need there, and really good gauges overall. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, right up top, you have the infotainment system that Alfa has here, which is not a touchscreen. It's close enough that it could be touch, and maybe, you know, in the future they will switch over like many other car companies are doing. But it still is, I really love how it's this super widescreen setup, and it kind of, you know, blends in, since it's a black background, it kind of blends in as to what is screen and what is plastic. And so really well done looking infotainment. As far as the usability of it, it's not the easiest to use, but it's certainly, I think, actually simpler than stuff like the BMW iDrive in some ways, which has way too many submenus and options and stuff. This kind of dumps it down a little bit, which I appreciate. And so, you know, just doing the basics, you know, radio, stuff like that is easy enough. I still wish there was just a simple tune knob. Instead, down here by the shifter, you have a volume knob, and it does go to the left and right. You can rock it to, you know, tune different radio stations, but still just not quite as easy as just spinning something. But nice to have the volume knob here. You also have the controller to control this infotainment system here. This also now, some of the later 2018s and on now have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto available. And so this one works really well. Again, a super wide screen use of that CarPlay. Some others, you know, they kind of crop it out or something. This, it's super wide. You know, the maps for Apple, for example, are nice and wide, a huge display there for that. So really nicely integrated CarPlay, not just added, but added well. And, you know, so with that, I think that makes it much easier if you're just using that for your maps, using that for your music, all that kind of stuff. Very simple. It would be nice if that were touch, again, to use it like a smartphone, but this controller, you just have to spin it a little bit to get to whatever thing you want to hit, and not a big deal there. So I'm really happy they now have CarPlay and Android Auto. That's a great addition. Coming down, you have your climate controls here, which are automatic, of course, and just a few knobs here and a couple of buttons, and very simplified. You know, there isn't a sea of stuff here. It's really wonderfully simple. I absolutely love that. And then right beneath that, you have a USB jack and a power outlet. Moving on to the storage space, you have two cup holders here, which are very deep and really nicely placed here. I really like, you know, where they put them, and, you know, lots of space there. Coming back over to the doors here, you have a large map pocket here, which does have a cutout for a bottle holder here. So that's good to see. And then coming back over to the center here, you have the center armrest, which is, you know, a little bit padded, you know, more of this nice feeling leather. And anyway, you open that up, and then you'll find a pretty deep cubby in here. You know, it's kind of nicely divided out, so you have little areas for different things. You also have two USB jacks and an auxiliary jack in there as well. So good to have all of those. So a total of 3 USB jacks up front here is really good. And so, yeah, a good amount of space there. It fits sunglasses, you know, all that type of stuff fits in there with ease. So, you know, as far as SUVs go, some SUVs have a little bit more space, but overall, I think this is still pretty good. Backseat space in the Stelvio is pretty good. You know, not the best out there as far as space goes, but still pretty good, you know, for a vehicle of this class, about average, I'd say. So I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself, I have about 3 inches of legroom to spare. Decent amount of headroom as well. You know, it's not quite as roomy as I would like for a vehicle of this size, but still, you know, should be plenty. You also see a fold down center armrest there with 2 cup holders built into it. Looking forward, you'll see 2 air vents there on the top, and then a little cubby and 2 USB jacks right out in the open, which I really appreciate. You know, a lot of others hide them in the you know, fold down armrest there, or they just don't have USB jacks back there at all. So for this to have 2 is a really nice addition. It should be great, you know, for those with families, and everyone has to have their stuff powered up. This has plenty of USB jacks to do that. Trunk space in the Stelvio Quadrifoglio is pretty good. Again, maybe a little more narrow than some of the others possibly, but still a good length and a good amount of space, again, for a vehicle that, you know, has, you know, the SUV shape, but it's not quite as long as, you know, some of the other stuff out there in the segment. So, you know, I think they did a really good job with the amount of space back there. You also can lift up that floor, and you'll see a few other little cubbies. And so overall, you know, like I said, about average for any other SUV, and really great to have that versatility here and still have the great performance. All right, so starting to go for a drive. The Alfa here has a really nice key, a little bit on the chunky side, but just has a really nice weight, has some metal on it. Just feels really like a nice solid key. I love the way that it feels in your hands. But of course, it's keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. Alright, so setting off in the Alfa Romeo Stelvio Quadrifoglio. There's been a lot of hype around these Quadrifoglio models, and this is actually my first time behind the wheel of one. I have not driven a Giulia yet either, as far as the Quadrifoglio version goes. But anyway, first thing you notice about the Stelvio Quadrifoglio here, well, you have a very nice high seating position. You know, you can see forward very, very well. The A-pillar's a little bit chunkier than I would like, but, you know, again, since you're sitting up so high and everything, it's still pretty easy to see around. The only thing about the Stelvio is here is the view out of the back, which is a little bit limited thanks, you know, they have more of a fastback, more unique profile to that rear window there, and so because of that, it limits your visibility a little bit, but you can still see out of the back just fine and see cars behind you and all that kind of stuff. Otherwise though, so we are in the natural mode, the N mode right now, which is the normal mode here for the Quadrifoglio, and you know, it's definitely, you know, on these 20-inch wheels, you definitely feel the road a little bit. It definitely feels very tuned in. You also have very sharp steering here, 12-1, which is almost as fast as the Giulia's 11.8-1. So I mean, very, very quick steering, which is a lot of fun in corners, as I discovered in the regular Stelvio and Giulia. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and put it up into the dynamic mode here. Let's turn down onto this straight road here and see how it does. Here we go. Man, it takes off like a rocket. Oh man, it's really smooth though too. You got the ZF 8-speed automatic. Oh, and it sounds so good, but man, once it flies, this thing is so fast. So anyway, the Stelvio Quadrifoglio here uses the 2.9-liter twin turbocharged V6 engine that does 505 horsepower, 443 pound-feet of torque, and gets us things going 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds. So very, very quick, and some have even tested it lower than that. Some are in the very low threes. So I mean, this thing is seriously fast. It'll keep up with supercars, all that kind of stuff, especially thanks to the fact that this has the all-wheel drive system. That's the big differentiator between the Stelvio Quadrifoglio and the Giulia Quadrifoglio. The Giulia is rear-wheel drive. The Stelvio version here is all-wheel drive, and so that extra grip, I think, really helps to put the power down and you know, give you some very, very quick launches. But man, oh man, I love it. And one thing though that I don't always love about these Alphas that you notice immediately as well is the brake pedal, which has a little bit of a weird sensation to it. It's never totally natural and very touchy whenever you do try and hit the brakes. So it actually, trying to be smooth with the brakes takes a little bit of effort. You have to kind of learn it. It's one of those things you definitely get used to. You know, I had a Stelvio and a Giulia both for an entire week, and after a while you do get used to it, but it still just takes a little more focus than it should, I think. One really cool thing though about this DNA selector, so like I said, the D is dynamic, N is natural, and the A I think is to, you know, make it more of an eco setup, but there's this button here for soft on top, and so that actually changes the damper settings so that it is a little more you know, compliant and a little, you know, softer to help on bumpy roads, which is really cool because you can have that independent of whatever drive mode you're in. So I'm still in the dynamic mode, but I can still have the soft dampers, which is really great that they let you have that individuality. There's also race mode here, which does open up the exhaust and make it louder, but unfortunately also disables stability and traction control, and I don't want to do that on public roads here, so unfortunately we don't have the loudest exhaust setting. I've heard that's something that hopefully they will add in eventually, is, you know, the louder exhaust, maybe in the dynamic mode or a separate thing. But yeah, so it's a little unfortunate that's reserved only to the race mode there, but still cool there's a race mode at all. But I got in manual mode here. Let's go around some corners. Oh, listen to that exhaust. And there's like rifle cracks every time you do an upshift. Oh, it's great. And these paddles, I love these paddle shifters, and it's so fast, they're so responsive, and they are just so great to use. Man, I mean, the automatic is really well tuned here in the all the Alphas, but honestly, it's just so addicting to pull these paddles and just do it yourself. It just feels so good when you do it yourself. It's man, that power is addictive though. Man, it's impressive. It's really, really crazy. And of course you have this quick steering, so you just have to turn the wheel just a hair and you instantly turn in, and it just immediately, it makes it feel so eager and so just ready to go and just, you know, excitable. I love it. It's just dive in, but it takes very little effort because, you know, the steering weight isn't very heavy. It has pretty good feel to it, but it's just, you know, not overly heavy or anything, so you just it's effortless. You just put it into a corner here, and it's really interesting. So as far as you know, the body roll goes, you do have a little bit, but it's like a lean, and then it kind of settles in. We'll try taking it out of the bumpy road mode, see how that changes the feel, if it does. Yeah, so that, I think that maybe firmed it up a little bit, so there's a little less lean there, but man, this thing, it definitely loves attacking a back road. I mean, like I said, it was the champ at the Nürburgring. I think it still does hold the record for fastest SUV. I mean, it is just an animal, and it definitely feels that way. Another thing, though, throttle response is razor sharp. I mean, for a turbo motor, usually there's a little bit of a delay, a little bit of lag. This, I mean, you maybe have to wait a millisecond before you get full boost, but you know, if you're in some of these lower gears at higher RPMs and you stomp on it, I mean, it's immediate, and it sounds good too. Oh, but yeah, I love this quick steering, and these brakes feel really good too. You know, although, like I said, the pedal modulation is a little odd sometimes, they really clamp down hard and give you a lot of confidence so that, you know, if you feel like you're overcooking a corner a little bit, you just, you know, lean on those brakes a little bit, gets you nicely tucked in, and then you're set. But it does lean a little bit, though. I kind of wished, you know, there was maybe a thicker sway bar setup or something on here. I know it's an SUV and you have a higher center of gravity, and I think the best way to get around that is to get the Giulia Quadrifoglio. If you don't need all-wheel drive, definitely go for that. I think it's going to probably be much flatter. I know at least even the regular Giulia that I reviewed was so amazingly flat and handled so well. And the Stelvio was very good as well, but the Giulia is still king just because you're sitting lower, the lower center of gravity, it's lighter, smaller, and so all those things will help the Giulia to be the king as far as handling goes. But for SUVs, you know, if you need to have the versatility, the all-wheel drive, the practicality, or you like sitting up high, whatever, I think the Stelvio is a fine compromise and an absolute blast. And yeah, speaking of the weight, though, you know, I've been mentioning the weight and, you know, how it feels a little heavier. These aren't super light. It weighs about 4,360 pounds, but that's really not too bad, honestly. Like, for example, I mean, it's an SUV, and that's only about 60 pounds heavier than like a BMW M5. So, I mean, not really that heavy when you consider it's an SUV. It's a little bit larger and stuff, and so compared to some of the other stuff like the Levante GTS, which is a bigger vehicle admittedly, but those are like 4,800 pounds. So I really think, you know, it's mostly just that higher seating position is what you're feeling in corners, but it doesn't make it any less impressive. I mean, I thought, honestly, if anything, it actually adds a little bit of drama too whenever you have that little bit of lean, and I think it's also exaggerated by the fact the steering is so quick, so that it pitches the car a little quicker than what you normally get in any other vehicle. So that's probably part of it as well. But I'm not making any excuses for this vehicle, because as it is, take it or leave it, it is fantastic. There's just so much to love about this thing, and it's just addictive, and everything just is so good to use. Like I said, the throttle response is great. The brake, you know, gives you so much confidence with how beefy these brakes are. The steering wheel is just a fantastic thing to use. I love using these paddles. These seats hold me in place very well. Everything is so tuned into the driver and so satisfying and enjoyable to use, and I can't get enough of it. I absolutely love this thing. Oh man, I want to take it around a racetrack is what I want to do. I just want to bury the gas and just fly, because it just makes you want to do that. It like taunts you. It just like begs to go faster and faster. It's like I'm holding it back, and it's like going crazy, just like it wants to just be set free, and I can't do it because we're on public roads. But oh man, I absolutely love the way this thing drives. Another acceleration here in manual mode from a stop. Oh man, when it goes over 6,500, that's where you really get those cracks. I love the way it sounds. I love the G-forces. It's so exciting whenever it just launches and takes off. Oh, but that's such a sweet sound. And I know in this review I'm just going on and on gushing here, but really there's like, it's so good. And I mean, there's a reason why this thing is, I mean, everyone seems to love it out in the, you know, as far as journalists go, as far as buyers go. I mean, it is just, there is so much to love here and so little to not like. I said, the brake pedal being a little tricky to modulate sometimes is the only thing that I can really, you know, say about these. Obviously some people get a little worried about Alfa's reliability, and you know, only time will tell with that, but I really think they've made a lot of improvements in that regard as well. So yeah, it's just an absolute blast. And the best thing about these, I think, honestly, is the value proposition. Now you think, okay, it's a crazy fast SUV that's on the luxury side of things as well, so it's got to be super expensive, and it is very expensive, but compared to the competition and the, you know, amount of performance this offers, I mean, you can't get similar performance performance out of other SUVs without spending way more usually. I mean, this is really well priced. You know, they start right around $80,000. This one has tested though with a few options like the carbon fiber steering wheel and a few other things. Love this transmission. This one's actually only $85,000, so it's only, you know, $5,000 in options there, and that's really it. There's not a whole lot of options you can put on the Quadrifolios. They come pretty well equipped already. I mean, $85,000, yes, that's a high number, but considering a lot of the other stuff with this kind of performance easily goes over the 100 mark, you know, I think this is actually really well priced and something that is well worth considering if you're looking for a performance SUV and you have the money to spend. And do one more little acceleration here from a little bit of a higher speed. 3,500, and just pulls. Even at these high RPMs, it pulls like crazy. It's really, really impressive. Man, I love this thing. So anyway, huge thanks once again to Alfa Romeo for providing us with this awesome Stelvio Quadrifoglio to review for you guys today. Let me know your thoughts on these in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.